Hello. So I kind of wanted to make a video just kind of going over how much I've been enjoying playing Zenless Zone Zero. And for the most part, this isn't going to be a critical review of the game. I wanted to give my take on what I've been enjoying about it, what kind of caught my eye originally, and what has turned into something that I have at this point put about 250 hours into. I originally saw this game 2 months before it was initially released, and at the time it looked pretty much just like a fun kind of combat centered anime themed like free to play game, and it seemed interesting enough. And hey, free to play, that's not necessarily a problem. So fast forward to a couple of months later, I completely forgot about it, missed the release entirely, didn't come back around to it until probably almost a month and a half after it had launched. But once I started into it, probably one of the first things that I really noticed about the game was just like how much you got for free, essentially. People who are familiar with this genre might hear that and think to themselves, well, of course, that's how this genre works. They lure you in with some free stuff and then try to get you to stay to spend money down the road, which is, let's be honest, every free-to-play game. And I think it's relevant to bring up that before I was playing this, I spent nearly that of a decade playing Destiny, Bungie's big MMO, FPS, something or other. I don't know, they changed the genre of it at least 5 times over the course of the 10 years. Part of the reason why I missed the initial release of Zenless was because I was still playing Destiny 2. They had their big 10-year finale. Once that kind of wrapped up, I found myself kind of looking for something that was going to deliver a bit more of its promises. So I decided to try out Zenless, and the first couple of things that really stood out to me was just the story felt cohesive, the characters just felt more fleshed out, the combat was crispy and was just like a lot of fun. So I decided to just keep playing it. I played through pretty much all of the story content. It took me probably about a month to get all caught up on the story content, side quests, leveling up characters and all that. And over that time, I really found a lot of value in just the fact that it was telling a cohesive narrative all the way through, even though by the time you finish chapter 2 interlude, the story's not over, it's ongoing. It's very much a live service in that regard. We just got chapter 3 out, and it kind of picks up and then continues the story, sort of. But once I started getting the hang of combat, once I started realizing that there are systems to play and invest in, I started finding it pretty enjoyable. There were a lot of aspects of the game that I didn't expect it to have so much depth for a free-to-play game. The more I played it, the more I realized that the characters are kind of zany sometimes and a little ridiculous and over the top. There's definitely a couple of story beats that happen that are, some land very well, some don't, but it all kind of stays within this endearing, fun, lighthearted atmosphere. Until it doesn't, which also kind of surprised me. I believe it's in chapter 2. There's this one particular hollow that you go into where it starts giving some horror vibes. There are some horrific looking monsters that appear at a certain point, and I'm not going to spoil anything in case for whatever reason you are watching this but haven't played through that part of the story yet. I will say that probably some of the coolest bosses that I've ever gotten to fight against in a video game, just purely on coolness factor alone. Now, one of the things that I've seen that people say is not their flavor is that combat seems to be just a left click spam, which to be in all fairness, at first it for the most part kind of is. You don't have to put a whole lot of thought into beating story missions. It's all generally pretty easy. The game introduces you into the investment systems pretty slowly. Most of those systems don't even unlock until you get to level 35, level 40, or even level 50 before everything is fully available to you. Once you start getting into some of the more end game level content, that's where combat starts becoming much more difficult. You can't just left click. You've got to start thinking about, you got to hit your parries, you got to hit your blocks, your dodges. You need to learn when and how to swap characters. You need to make sure that your team is composed in such a way that they all kind of synergize with each other, and this character buffs that character, and this character here will dodge and will give this buff. And honestly, it gets a lot more complicated than you would expect at first. And for most of the early game, I think that's fine. I would not want to continue playing the main story if I had to know all of the combat ins and outs up front. Once you start getting into the end game, once you start running Hollow Zero and collecting all of the items that provide you buffs and modifiers, it can get pretty complicated, but not in a bad way. Variety is in no short supply. To be fully upfront, this game is considered a gacha game. When I first heard that, I thought it was like a ooh, gotcha kind of phrase. The closest game to this that I've played that has a similar mechanic would probably be Overwatch, when Overwatch had loot boxes for their character skins. I understand that the major difference between the two is that in Overwatch, it's only cosmetic items, whereas in Zenless Zone Zero, you can spend real money to get more chances at better characters and better weapons and more upgrade materials. That's how the game makes its free-to-play money. There are a lot of players who spend big bucks on all the characters they want, all the teams they want, set up exactly the way they want to. As for me, myself, I'm definitely considered a low spend player. I have the battle pass, the closest equivalent I can think of to call it, just for some extra things to do and grind for. Other than that, I'm not spending on any extra character pulls or anything of that nature. No monochrome purchasing, which is the in-game currency that you can purchase. And then you can convert monochromes to polychromes, which you can then use to get the limited time available characters with. I really feel that part of my enjoyment of the game is just getting the free-to-play value out of it. So I really don't see myself ever spending any extra money on it other than a battle pass. Otherwise, it just wouldn't feel like I'm really getting as much value out of it if I was putting more money into it. So the free-to-play gacha side of it, which I learned that apparently gacha is a Japanese vending machine. It's called gachapon or gashapon. It's basically just like a vending machine. You just put in a couple of coins, you turn a big rotator, and then out pops a little ball, and it has some characters in it or some toys, and there's different rarities and varieties of them. That's where the whole gacha thing comes from. You know, turn a crank and then out pops a ball, and then there's something in it. Maybe it's a copy, maybe it's not, which is basically how you get all of the limited edition characters in the game. Is you will go to the limited channel, you put in a bunch of polychromes, which you can earn in-game without paying anything extra, and after a number of pulls, if you will, or encrypted master tapes, you will get a chance at getting one of the limited characters. Personally, one of the ways that I treat this system, I don't expect to get the character on any one individual random pull. Fortunately, the game tells you how many pulls you have to spend before you get a guarantee. In my mind, I've just kind of like play with the assumption that I'm just not going to get the character until I reach one of the guarantees. So in my mind, it's not like, oh, well, just one more. It's like, no, I need to put in 30 of these before I hit the guarantee. That's when I'll get the character. And I'm pretty okay with that. As a low spend or like completely free to play player, you're probably not going to be able to get all of the characters unless you're lucky. That all being said, some of the things that are keeping me playing, the new limited time characters that are coming out, some of them are cool. Some of them are very cool. Anyways, what was I saying? The things that I'm most interested in doing, the things that I'm most interested in spending time on, are continuing to build out teams to tackle some of the end game content that it has. Shiyu Defense is kind of like the pinnacle at the moment. In order to do that, you need 2 teams of 3. I've managed to clear several of the nodes, but I can't completely get all the way through all of them. I do not have a strong enough second team to pull it off yet. There are some characters coming out soon that I am saving my free polychromes from playing, or my battle pass polychromes, because I desperately need a better DPS character at the moment. But I'm happy with just waiting and playing and collecting stuff and saving up, and not spending any real money to do it. Another aspect I do really want to emphasize that is keeping me and getting me more invested more than anything else: the stories and the lore of the game. One of the things I like, it shows you how the Hollows interact with the world and what it means when one shows up, and the ramifications of Hollows expanding or contracting, how they work, what they are, why they're here, what are the humans doing in terms of like manipulating them? Are they responsible for it? Is it some sort of supernatural phenomenon that happened? What's going on with the moon? That seems to be a big deal. What the Hollows are and why they're here and what that means for the wider world are some questions that I'm definitely invested in finding out the answers to. I feel like a lot like I did when I first started playing Destiny, where it seemed like the possibilities were endless, the questions were many and the answers were few. As long as they don't start retconning things to change the scale of how something that seemed to be a big deal is actually just not a big deal, I think I'll be okay with whatever the answers end up being. I guess we'll see. So can't wait to see if we get some real answers. I feel like there's a good chance that we will. But yeah, what do you guys think? I would love to hear some opinions from you guys of however you're feeling about it, whatever your experience was. What characters did you get? What characters are you hoping to get? Let me know. I'd like to make more videos on this in the future. I got some gameplay explainers, I got some system explainers planned. Probably the stuff that I'm most excited about is just some like theory, conjecture, lore videos. What the hell's going on with the moon? What is that? Nothing else looks like that. Except for a hollow. It might be a hollow. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Okay. So anyways, if you want to like see any of that stuff, let me know. Let me know what lore aspects you're excited about down in the comments. If you found this helpful, if you found it interesting, if you're just as excited as I am, please consider hitting the like button or maybe the subscribe button if you want to talk lore. Thank you for watching to this point in the video. I super appreciate it. I'm excited to play this game more and learn more about it. So yeah, thanks for watching.